to a heavy infestation of lung and gut worms. There are many health challenges facing the sheep industry. One of the most serious is lameness.
Lameness in sheep is a big welfare problem, and we also know that it has a major effect on the economics of sheep farming. But the problem is there are quite a few different conditions even within the category of sheep lameness. Some of them are common, some of them are less common. These are conditions such as foot rot, scald, and a relatively new condition called CODD, C-O-D-D, which stands for contagious ovine digital dermatitis. And perhaps if I had to pick the three major disease conditions of sheep lameness, those would be the list at the moment, but there are many others as well. Some of the options for sheep lameness are quite similar. So for instance, pairing, foot bathing would be common to many of the conditions, but other sheep lameness conditions need specific treatments and specific drugs. And again, that's where veterinary advice and prescribing of the important drugs is important.
Another worry for research workers is the increasing prevalence of sheep scab.
We support the attempts to develop an eradication scheme which will be based probably on compulsory treatment of sheep. But at Moredun, we're also involved in perhaps longer term options, which include the production of a vaccine against sheep scab. Now, this is still at fairly early stages, but what the scientists have done is to identify allergens, proteins produced by the sheep scab mite. And by introducing those into sheep, it's possible to produce a degree of protection that reduces both the size of the lesion with sheep scab and also reduces the numbers of mites. And so we take this as a significant move forward in terms of attempting vaccination, but it is a very difficult thing to produce a vaccine against an ectoparasite such as sheep scab.
And there are other wider issues too, which offer an important challenge to research scientists.
One of the major concerns we have are the methods that we're using to control roundworms. These are the gut worms, particularly in sheep. We have evidence that there is an increasing level of resistance to the major wormers that we use across the UK and in fact indeed across the world. There are three major groups of drugs which we use as anthelmintics, as worming agents, and there's increasing evidence that we have not only resistance to the most common wormers, but also multiple resistance, which I think is a major problem, essentially for the sustainability of the industry. Eventually, we believe that it will be important that we develop vaccines against roundworms in sheep, because we believe that that type of strategy may well be necessary in order to completely control the infection.
And the list of challenges doesn't end there, as Professor Fitzpatrick explains.
Another disease which is reported regularly to us as a concern is Yagsicte, or OPA, ovine pulmonary adenocarcinoma. This is a viral condition of sheep caused by a retrovirus, and it eventually causes a pneumonia and a tumorous condition of the lungs of sheep. We have this increasingly reported to us as a problem in Scotland, and again this is a major problem for sheep farmers because there is no simple diagnostic test that allows farmers to realise that their sheep have the infection. Eventually the animals hang back and develop respiratory signs, and by that stage the disease is usually advanced. And again, it's an area that we really badly need an early diagnostic test in order to detect the disease. The condition is eventually fatal in sheep, and so again all of the emphasis is in preventing the condition rather than waiting to try to treat it because it is incurable. We're not sure exactly how transmission occurs, but it is suggested that when sheep are brought together, when they're handled closely, perhaps trough feeding or being maintained indoors, that gives a better opportunity for the virus to pass from sheep to sheep through the respiratory secretions which the infection produces. And so this is a significant problem, and one that seems to be increasing in prevalence in Scotland and across the UK.
You'll have heard some of the farmers and vets featured in this sheep chapter referring to the funding available under the Animal Health Programme as part of the Land Management Contract. This programme funds individual farmers thousands of pounds over 5 years to enhance the health and welfare of their stock and consequently their farm business profitability. There's funding available for an Animal Health and Welfare Action Plan, performance monitoring and benchmarking, biosecurity, sampling, and forage analysis. To make the most of this grant-funded opportunity, contact your local vet today. So what advice should farmers expect if they want to keep disease out of their flocks and herds? Let's leave the last word to one of the country's leading research scientists.
Think before you make major moves in farming to think about what the consequences are of moving animals onto your farm, mixing unknown stock with your own home-reared stock, and essentially taking veterinary advice or farm advisor advice to make sure that the risks are minimised. The consequences of bringing disease onto your farm can be enormous, and I think people underestimate it. It's not easy to see disease. Disease can be subclinical. You may not be able to see any signs of it, but it is costing you money. It's also adversely affecting the welfare of farmed livestock, and I think that's something that Scottish farmers are very aware of, and we can do something about that. So perhaps think before you act in terms of particular movement of animals onto farms.
We hope that you found the information in this programme to be helpful and thought-provoking. Getting on top of the diseases and health issues featured can make a significant improvement to the profitability of your livestock business. Before you can prevent or control a health problem, however, it's important to understand it. Your vet can fully explain the details of particular diseases and health issues, in particular the causes. Understanding the cause is a major step towards successful prevention. And there is no doubt that prevention is far better than cure.